Hi, this is Asim.
This is Sujoy.
This is Amrita.
And you're listening to Khandan, a Bollywood podcast about the three main Khans of the Hindi film industry.
Amir,
Salman,
and Shara.
Hi, you're listening to Khandan, a Bollywood podcast regular feed. Thank you so much for your support over the years. We now have a Patreon channel with bonus content and exclusive merch for those of you who would like to support us. Every dollar goes towards creating more and better content. Visit us at patreon.com/Khandan podcast.
Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Khandan Podcast. My name is Asim Bernie, and I'm joined with my lovely co-host Amrita and Sujoy. Hey, Amrita. Hey, Sujoy.
hey people.
Hello.
I was hoping you guys could give like a decent hello after the debacle of last time, but it's still not happening, right? We're still like, not in
What do you mean?
The rhythm is off. The rhythm is off, people. I think we need a break. I think that's what's happening. We have Aimun Faisal with us. Hey, Aimun.
Hey.
We are talking about. So actually, let's plug your Twitter handle too, because that's where all the amazing things are coming from. All the amazing thoughts and writing. So it's Blue Magic Boxes on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And on Instagram also. Or
no, on Instagram I'm just 60 followers who are my friends.
Okay, yeah. Oh, good. So we are talking about Barzakh this episode. We had one episode where we just, I think I watched 2 episodes or 3 episodes. You guys watched 2 of them. Aimun, you always have amazing thoughts. At least Amrita, you've been following Aimun's work for a while, right?
Yes. So we were like thinking about who we wanted on for Barzakh because it's an event, isn't it? Like whatever your feelings might be about it, and I think we're going to have like a variety of opinions on this podcast, as well as on Twitter and elsewhere. But irrespective of that, it's been an event of the kind that we haven't seen in a while. So we wanted to do more than like the little, drive-by discussion that we did. And who better than Aimun? So welcome, Aimun.
Also, Amrita, you can say what you really feel. Huh? You also felt Asim is not Pakistani enough for this, right? Like, just admit it.
I mean, it started with Asim being like, well, this isn't really my kind of thing. And being like, oh yeah, it was very nice.
It was
like, well...
That was 100 Asim impression, by the way.
I was like, well, I need a little bit more.
Yeah.
So...
Amrita was basically the gangs of Wasipur meme, like, tumse na ho paega. Let's bring in somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Wow, you made Amrita into Ramadir Singh now.
Like, Asim tried his best, but...
I try, guys. That's what I do.
He did it for a fellow Asim, but it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Exactly. I guess it looks pretty. That's how which I feel is a good summary of the show. But let's get into it. We watched the first few episodes. I think we were generally quite positive, I think, for the first few. And let's get into if that has changed. But I want to hear, Aimun's, your general thoughts on Barzakh now that the season has ended. It's kind of been a thing. What do you feel about it?
I mean, I enjoyed it in parts, but like overall, I was just like, man, you're doing too much to say too little. Like, this is not. It's such a weird comparison, but I don't know if you've seen this film Mother, starring Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know that movie where you're just like, man, I get it. Like, you're doing too too much. Like, you're doing a lot. Like, I get it. I get the allegory. Like, I get it.
The allegory.
Yeah, and then like it's just, and now it's going nowhere. Like, now it's just like, now we're just spinning around in circles. And yeah, so I enjoyed it in certain parts. Like, I thought certain parts were really well done, but overall, I was just like, Man, I get it. It's a lot.
Sujoy, man, you tried your best.
Yeah, so I passed the halfway mark. So this series has 6 episodes. I watched till like my patience ran out, like 3.5 episodes. I really dragged myself into it, and unlike Aimun, I don't get it. You know? I really tried. I just don't get it. There was way too many things. Do you know when the trailer dropped, and with series like this, when trailers drop, they try to confuse you because there's lots of things happening, and then it raises your curiosity to go and explore the series, and then they peel off the layers to reveal all the meanings of what each of the components mean. 3.5 episodes in, I just wasn't able to go anywhere with it. So I was like,
It was just
I'm
a
done.
6-episode thriller.
Yeah. Apparently it's like 5 hours 40 minutes, and it was done for me. I just did not get it.
Amrita?
I liked it. Honestly speaking, I did. It wasn't as deep, I think, as a lot of the people online wanted it to be. So there's like two things. Like, one is the actual series itself, which was fine.
Mhm.
Like, I liked it. It was pretty. I thought that it was trying to do a couple of different things that were interesting, and that was fine. And then you had Asim Abbasi on Twitter and his interaction, his parasocial relationship with his fans, which was very cute. Like, it's been a while since I saw a creator who was so open and vulnerable to the people that were reacting to his work. Like, he really enjoyed the fact that so many people were really trying to read things into it. They were doing like the Twitter threads. They were doing like, Tumblr behavior from 2012. And he was really into it. And that was apparently what he was looking for as well, I think, once he had the series out there. So that was also kind of cute. But was it as serious as like people were trying to make it be? I don't think so. Like, I agree with Aimun. Like, I get it, but like, it's fine.
Yeah, I think even those people stopped tweeting after a while. Like people were like, "Oh, themes," and then I think it's fine. Yeah, I'm a bit. It's I am I enjoyed watching it. I have to say, I have to enjoy watching it, but I would not be able to recommend this to anybody. Like, I would not say, go watch this, you have to watch this. You get some insight into life about something out of it, except that it's just visually amazing. Like, it looks, the scenery is amazing. For somebody who has not seen Pakistan more than Karachi, and even then the sanitized version of Karachi, this is just like, wow, like, we have this in Pakistan. It looks so amazing. The people are amazing. The costume design, the camera work, the production design, all of that is so pretty. But like, this show, our Khandan podcast, is built on certain tenets, like some, philosophies. And one of those philosophies, at least my philosophy, is that village life just sucks. And I think this show, more than any show in recent time, proves that to me, that I would not be able to survive in a village where people are like you chanting at me like, I'm a snake, I'm a dragon. What are you saying? Then you have like, and the other thing is, in village life, because people are a bit behind, they don't have internet connection, they have songs that only reach later. So now they're singing songs from the 80s. Then you have Atif Aslam, you have a Coke Studio, but no, we're going all the way to Alamgir.
Also, what was the point of that? Why was it happening?
I think
Why
that's what.
did that scene happen? Like, there's so many scenes where I was just like, what is the point of this?
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's like my general thoughts about it. But I think let's break down, because otherwise we'll just go all over the place like the show did. Let's break down some of the themes, or try to untangle some of the themes of the show. So the ones that I found, and you're welcome to add or take out any that you may have found. The main one I found was this idea of love not being able to fulfill love. And this is a theme, obviously, that is part of our culture, part of our poetry, part of our films about unfulfilled love. And I think this takes it to the next level of what the toxicity is, attached to that kind of one-sided or unfulfilled love. So that's the story of Mehtab and was Mehtab, sorry,
Jafar.
Sorry,
Jafar.
Jafar. Yeah, but I'm gonna go straight. Was Mehtab a witch? Was she a
No.
witch? No, she wasn't.
No.
Okay.
No.
What was the book she wrote? Like, is that a witch book or?
Who knows?
Okay. So
It's just that they never explained how the book came to be, who wrote it, why did Mehtab was the only one who had it. Like no
see,
one knows.
I'm glad you're confirming it. I was like, maybe this is some book they have in
No.
Pakistan, which is really important.
No, the thing is, it was okay. Like, finish your thought, because I was like,
That was it.
yeah, that was like, I was just like, like that Rafiki-esque character that they had, who lives in a cave, who has like these markings on the wall. Other than the fact that like the fairies delivered the baby to him, what purpose did he serve? Like, why was he there?
He was the babysitter for Haris later on.
Yeah, no, he wasn't even the babysitter for Haris. He was the babysitter for Haris's friend, like that little girl, who also in the large scheme of things did nothing in the show. So I was just like, why is this whole like section of story here? These people do nothing. They just act, like they just come in and like in the first 2 episodes you think they will do something. So you keep waiting on them and you try to like decipher everything that's on his walls and everything. And then it just becomes very clear that he's not going to do anything about this.
So you didn't feel bad for Jafar that his love got taken away by the elders.
I love when like directors play this game with me that I like to call, is this theatrical or did you just underwrite this character? Like, are you inspired by theater, or is this character just not? So like, there is like this kind of force in performance, but like nothing comes.
This is what my criticism of Maya Memsa was, by the way. I'm gonna touch on it.
That's because Asim was the only one who was trying to actually understand what Maya Memsa meant. Like, that is a whole other issue entirely. Yeah, I like what Aimun just said. Like, that's basically what I feel about the characters, which is that it's very difficult for you to connect emotionally with any of these characters, even the ones that have been like obviously done very wrong. But you still can't feel anything for them because they all, it's like they're like one step removed, or like they're like concepts rather than like actual people. And you can't really feel an emotional bond with a concept. So like there are flashes in the first few episodes where you think like, okay, like Jafar is like a actually interesting character. He's a total bastard, but also he carries the weight of this wrong that was done to him and his love, and he's trying to like do something with it. And then like by the end of the series you're just like, wait, what? Like, why? What was that about? Like, you just don't get like to the end of it and feel a sense of closure. And also at various points throughout the series, the characters just sort of they sort of go into this sort of Twitter social justice speak. Like there's this one particular point where I think like maybe in the second or third episode where Fawad is talking to his dad and his dad's being absolutely vile. And I forget what it was, but it was something about his wife. And it's sort of unintentionally funny as well with the way that it's shot, because it's Fawad standing with his nose in the air, like looking down at his dad as if his dad stinks. And then Fawad just like walks off saying stuff like, the toxicity over here is too much for me to handle. And I'm just like, who talks like that? Like, nobody talks like that in real life. And if you do talk like that to like a man who is like sitting on a mountainside in like Hanza, like, what is wrong with this entire scene? Like, I don't understand like why that scene exists, and like why what is Sawad's character's name? Shahryar.
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So why is like
hot dude, hot dude, gay dude, sweater
no,
dude. That's the Italian
Oh,
dude.
that's the
That's
other Fawad. That's the other Fawad. This one, this time, this Fawad wasn't there.
but like there was a point where like even the pretty wasn't enough. Like I
yeah.
started off the series being like, wow, these people are like really hot, and then by
Yeah,
somewhere like around the time that Sujoy quit, I was like, these people are annoying. Like
yeah, yeah.
I don't feel attracted
Or,
at all.
maybe that's a thing about just hot people in general. Like after a
Once you
while,
get to know them.
yeah, after a while, hey, you're just annoying. Sujoy, wow. Did any of the like which theme stood out for you? Did that one work for you? Kind of the toxicity of the dad, like how he's dealing with his children, like
No, like I don't know. It's all incomplete stories for me because I did not have the patience to complete what was intended to complete the story. But by the sound of it, you guys don't even have a complete picture of what happened. I did like the narrative or the visual narrative choice of demarcating the time jumps when
Yep.
the image squeezes into the box aspect ratio, or and when it's modern day they put it wide open. As for the characters, I don't know, like it felt like everybody of these, like the sons, the father generation, the village people, everybody's unlikable. So like I'm not rooting for anyone to win here. Even if like the failed love story, you see that in the first episode itself, right? The father character goes away to the city to earn his living. He comes back and sees the girl that he loved that has passed away. But then nothing like that's supposed to be the love story that ties everything together, because that's the one that is promoted in the trailers as well, that he's looking for the love in the afterlife or the purgatory, and love still sort of lives on in a way and you can be reunited. But yeah, I did not feel like he's so bitter in the way that he portrays his love, and he's angry at everyone. It just felt like I was not rooting for him by the time I left this series.
and I think for me the problem was also the actor playing Jafar is I had real trouble with him because I could not connect in him, like you're saying, Aimun, is it a writing problem or is it a performance problem? I think he was going too loud, too toxic in so many scenes that I could never connect with him being this forlorn lover that lost his love of his life and it's destroyed, but then he just creates this path of destruction and is trying to punish these people of the village. And I just never knew, I never knew this character because he became a rich man. But did he become a rich man because he married rich women, or what? Did the clown business take off? Like he was also a clown for a while. Like there was like
No, he was supposed to be. I mean, it's just one of those things because you're trying to do something. Now you're also having this conversation about man and the relationship with land. So he's supposed to be, I imagine, like a real estate developer. And that's like a conversation I imagine on Pakistan's like real estate industry, which is like toxic and like removes people from their lands and
there's a theme of ecology
yeah,
versus capitalism in there, but
yeah.
again it's not
I'm
really
just like,
explored,
it's
right?
not explored. It's just like you were writing and this came to you while you were writing and you just did not like you have to make a choice. Either I explore this or I just leave this here and put it in another project.
And then it's also this duality where, okay, like I think you can all say that we're liberal leaning people just generally, so we would then say, okay, capitalism is bad, ecology and these people, but I hate the villagers too. Like I can't
No, they
stand
were
these.
supposed to be. They were supposed to be like unlikable. Like
Yeah.
it's just like the whole Nambardar character, which is just a very interesting name to give to a character, I feel, because of the way this story has gone. He is also supposed like the whole like I did not for the life of me I couldn't believe the conflict between the brothers. I was just like this is like at one point I just like laughed. I was like this cannot be like, you're not expecting me to believe that this man turned into like this religious zealot because his brother left him as a child and took his money and like just went to the city to earn money. I was like, that is too big a leap. Like something else needs to happen between these two things
Hmm.
for me to believe this is just like this hate rage, like, you know, like run a mob kind of person, who like really believes in this book that he like swears by. And I'm just like, not enough happens in the middle for me to believe that. And I don't know if you watch the entire thing, but that is the relationship that needs healing, apparently.
Apparently,
Between
yeah.
between the Nambardar and like Jafar. And I'm like, you did not set this relationship up that way. Like I didn't care for their relationship, or like if these two brothers ever make up. Like I didn't care. But that was supposed to be like the big conclusion to this, that until like Jafar fixes like what hurt was caused by his brother, like it will just like keep flowing through generations. And I was like, you just did not set up this relationship to be that important to me. It just, yeah.
And also, what do these brothers stand for? Like, you know, is it like ecology and capitalism getting like finding a balance, or is it just these two individuals? Is it just because he
They
broke
were in
his?
love with the same girl.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
She's.
I mean, he wasn't in love with her. He has like a little bit of a crush on her once like Jafar left. And then he found out she was pregnant with his child. So he called the elders and he was like, we need to punish her because this child will bring destruction. And he's the reason the child was killed. And so when Jafar hugged him at the end, I was just like, this is nonsense, actually.
Amrita, what did you think of the theme of these brothers in conflict?
Again, yeah, I agree with Aimun. Like, it wasn't set up at all. And then suddenly in the last episode, it was like, this is your great ill that you have to like appease for. And I'm like, why? And also, this is a man who, like, we've just spent like 6 episodes watching him like literally punish an entire village of people for like being responsible for the death of Mehtab. And then he discovers it was his brother, and he's just like, well, okay, I love you anyway, boo-boo. Like, why?
But I do have to say, it was like this whole thing about, you know, I will not let these people enter. I thought these villagers were going to burn his house down, but they just didn't like the veranda. That's it. It was just the veranda.
So they had apparently buried, like, this is so ridiculous because when I say it, I just realize how ridiculous this sounds. So the village elders, they supposedly decided they needed to kill Mehtab, right? So they were these 12 village elders, and the prophecy said that the child will bring destruction.
Mehtab's own prophecy said that, right? Like, she wrote her own prophecy.
Exists, like the book that exists, which who knows why it exists, it just said that, right? And it's supposed to be like, that is also supposed to be commentary on like religion and people who believe by the book and don't understand it, etc., etc. But like, so he sort of like this, like, oh, there's going to be destruction, so we need to kill this like child out of wedlock and also this girl. And so they kill her, except the fairies take her away, or like she becomes a fairy, one of those two things. And as a result, like there is like God's wrath. I mean, they say azab, so I'm imagining God's wrath. And like all those 12 villagers just die the next day. Like all of them just drop dead, right? And those 12 villagers are buried around that tree, which Jafar has built like this veranda around, and like he refuses to let people visit those graves. And I'm just like, in a normal like conversation about capitalism and ecology or whatever, these people will tear down this veranda. Like they won't keep requesting him. At one point they'll just tear the thing down. It's just like, why? This is not that deep. Like, I get it.
What cards does Jafar hold against the
like,
people?
like he's this big philanthropist and everyone respects him. I'm like, doesn't matter. Like,
no.
Uncle walk pe jayenge, yahan se veranda girega.
Yeah.
So the people with the stones on their back are the elders who died, is it?
But no, those are souls, and the stones on their back are like their ills that they did. Once again, that storyline also goes nowhere.
It's also people that didn't die there. This is like
no, it's just if you are there and someone related to you died, they're just forced to travel with you wherever you go.
Yeah, and then they somehow interact with the living of the current day, and then a chip on the stone happens, and the weight is a bit lightened. The
weight falls. Sure. I think it's just the weight of like things they haven't said, or like things they did that they regret or whatever. And like the moment they like interact with a living person, it just for. And also, like, sometimes they interact with a living person, sometimes the living person doesn't see them. It's just, we're just supposed to assume that when the ghost decides to make itself apparent, it makes itself apparent. Yeah.
But then in the middle of everything, there are these little asides that I don't know what to make of. Like, there's a point where, for instance, when the little kid, I think it's in the first episode, where the little kid comes and says that, like, let us access the graves and everything. And,
Yeah.
he's just being like a little shit to the old man. And then as the little kid is being escorted out, somebody, I don't remember who, says like an aside like aur padhao inhe. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, where did that little bit of like feudalism come in? Like, I don't, yeah, it just has like, just as the theology seems to be all like mixed up, even the politics seems to be a little bit mixed up, where I'm just like, I can't really follow a cohesive line. And maybe, I don't know, so this is my question to you, like, do you think like that was the point? Like, the point is that like none of this really matters in the end, like, it's just vibes basically.
Honestly, that's where I was going with this. I think this is just vibes. It's like, just if you get some thread out of it, great. But okay, I want to take this to the next point, because I want to ask this of Aimun too, because she probably has a better idea of this. The show has been banned or pulled from YouTube Pakistan, right? And I missed the controversy. I didn't understand why it was pulled. Then I try to figure out why it got pulled. And obviously, I should have known it was the thread, like the homosexual thread between the second Fawad's character and the Italian chef, the Italian chef character, right?
Yeah. Who's Spanish?
Is he Spanish?
I don't know. He keeps speaking in Spanish, but like he cooks Italian food.
I thought he was.
No, but he says "senor" and he says "si," and I'm just like, okay, so you're Spanish, and then he cooks Italian food. So I'm just like, are you not Spanish?
No, I think he says Napoli at some point. So
okay, but like he speaks like the interludes are Spanish. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
certainly it was
a random backpacker Gora, basically,
just,
that got stuck in North Pakistan.
Just only European that's there. I'm like, why are you here?
He's just vibing, man. He's just vibing. He's making risotto to people that have never had risotto.
I actually have a theory on that. But like,
I would. But yeah, before that, so I want to hear that theory. But so because of this thread, and I was looking at a lot of people's comment, like drama reviewers, and it. Like, I don't watch a lot of Pakistani dramas. Apologies for that, but I do feel that a lot of Pakistani dramas are stuck in a way of doing things that doesn't really work for me. And those reviewers or commentators discuss those kind of shows, and that's their kind of sandbox that they play in. And because this was a kind of a outside of that sandbox, there was always going to be pushback. From the first episode, there was pushback. But then when you add this element of homosexuality, then people just go crazy. Like, then this is all the fault of this part. Where I honestly felt, is this, they're being very, kind of superficial. There's no blatant sexual acts in it. It's all very subtle. It's all very poetic, even, like it's a very like poetic kind of love without any touching and stuff like that. And in a way, people were saying this shouldn't be in here. But I was thinking, is this the only way to address these themes? Be it very poetic, very distant, because you cannot be overt, because you end up becoming a Joyland or stuff like that. But I think I saw some pushback, but there have been shows that have dealt with these topics in a much better way. So even maybe you can speak towards that. And what did you feel? Because for me, I felt that was maybe the most well balanced aspect in the show, that homosexual story.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I believe that. But I also did not believe the way it concluded, which, if you haven't seen the 4th episode, everyone starts tripping. Like, quite literally starts tripping. Like, she puts drugs in their food and they start tripping. Okay, so I also did not like how that was resolved. But my take on this was that there is no way you introduce a story about homosexuality in a show that is marketed to a Pakistani audience. Like, you can argue that this is like, produced by Z, or like it's for an international audience, etc., etc. But you're marketing it to them, like you're casting their biggest superstars. There's no way they're not tuning in, right? So you're marketing to them. You have a homosexuality kind of thread. I mean, there is no way you're not expecting backlash. Like, you're expecting like some kind of reaction from a people who are largely homophobic, right? But I think that is all that was. That was just Twitter backlash. That was just people on Twitter being like, "Oh, we will sue you. How dare you?" etc., etc. And I'm just like, yeah, people sue each other over films like all the time, everywhere. Like, that is a thing that happens. Like, you like, it's on YouTube. You're under no threat. Like, YouTube isn't governed by a Pakistani like kind of official body or anything. So I'm just like, I even understand like pulling the show because it's just like, oh, it's for safety or whatever. But a friend of mine was just like, man, sometimes failure is just failure. It's not martyrdom. Like, it's just, you just told a story that people could not relate to. Like, it's just, like in Pakistan, for example, you have stories at the 8 p.m. time slot about like people who cross-dress because of like almost Oedipal trauma, or like trans characters who go through like transition, etc. And I think a lot of it kind of just passes under the table because they're not saying the words that send alarm bells off. Like, they're not saying it in English, right? Like, they're talking to you in the language that it makes sense to like most people who tune in for the show, because they're not saying like homosexuality or the shame attached to homosexuality. And like, I mean, in Pakistan, you like, I was saying a friend, I was like, if you show me like a heterosexual couple leaning in for a kiss, right? Like, even that would create like waves. We don't even show that. Like, we won't even show that. Like, even the heterosexual love is like very much an implication, right? So it's just, I mean, I get it if you pulled it back because you're just like, oh, safety or whatever. But I personally did not see anything outside of Twitter that would make me think, oh, this needed to be pulled back, or like there was like a real threat. Because even with Zindagi Tamasha, that got taken on directly by the right wing in Pakistan, they released it on YouTube. They're just like, just have it here, just keep it here, like watch it here if you want to. And I'm like, so you can watch it here. Like, I mean, people access Netflix every day. Like, it's not like they're banning everything on it. So just put it here. And then, so I didn't actually see any reason. I just felt it was also a little bit questionable that you announced this on the day of the finale. It's like, what an apt day to announce that we're pulling this back. But yeah, I just honestly, I did not see anything outside of Twitter backlash where I was just like even if the drama reviewers were saying stuff, like, the drama industry doesn't care what drama reviewers are saying. They've been saying do not hit women for like till eternity come. The drama makers don't care. Like, they're just like, yeah, fuck you, I don't care. But just, I didn't actually see anything where I was just like, oh yeah, like, if I was in their place, I would have pulled this back. Like, it's just, you're introducing a storyline about homosexuality to a largely homophobic society. You expect some kind of pushback. And if like it was within the bounds of the kind of pushback I would have expected on a show like this. Yeah.
Amrita, how did that theme work for you? Because there's also the theme of that character having killed his mom, right? So he's also carrying that. So we're basically adding, and he has issues with connecting with his father. So there's a lot packed in that one thread. How did that kind of work for you?
To me, like, that was again like one of the most interesting threads in this entire story. And maybe the reason why I feel that way is also because it was the most real, or it felt the most real to me. Because everyone else was just like, oh, like supernatural, and then this guy was just like, yeah, my mom is like, like, I'm conflicted about the fact that I'm gay in a society where like I genuinely feel like my being gay has like ruined the life of my mother, even though she doesn't know it. Like that scene where he like wrings the neck of the pigeon, like that to me was just, it was like, I think the first really emotional moment that I saw in the series up till then. There was just something about that poor little boy like standing with his back to the camera, and then just that little cloud of like red that was coming up. Like, that was like really good storytelling right there, like visually. And then you slowly begin to see what his life was like and like what that happened. And even the way that story ends with like him, like trying to make an overture to the Spanish Italian backpacker mystery Gora. And the way that that resolves, like that entire thing seemed like something that would actually happen. And it seemed like something that perhaps had happened to like at least somebody in on the writing team, or I think the writing
Yeah.
team is just Asim Abbasi, but at least like he knew somebody maybe, and so I don't know, like, but then I also agree that this was not a small plot point. Like, it's the main thread in the entire story, which means that everybody that signed on to this project knew that that story would be there, including the person who was like playing that character. So it's not like, again, like, I'm not even Pakistani, but I know that this isn't going to run in Pakistan. Like you, if you had asked me like, hey, like what if I just like made this movie about like a guy who's like wants to like hook up with like a European, and then like put it on like all the big stars in Pakistan, I would have been like, yeah, like there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like really mad about it. Even in India, if you have like a story that has like an LGBTQ character, people get mad. They still get. I've seen like a lot of Pakistanis say that, oh yeah, like this is meant for India, like it's meant for an Indian audience, therefore it's okay. And like, it's not okay. Like there's a lot of people who get really mad about it in India as well. So yeah, you knew that this was coming with the territory. So I it I don't believe that they didn't have a game plan in when they went ahead with this. I make fun of Zee5 a lot, but I can't believe that even they're that incompetent. Like that is not reality as I know it.
Sujay, did that work for you? Because I think that probably gets wrapped up in the 3-4 episode you've seen, right? Because there's never really like a large conclusion at the end of that.
No, there is a conclusion towards episode
Yeah.
4. I think it would happen after the tripping episode. Yeah.
Right. You didn't see the tripping episode? They were
No,
all
I
magic
haven't.
mushrooms. You missed that? Or no? Okay.
Oh, damn it. That's my genre. That's my kind of thing, but I missed that. I didn't get to that. But I think they did explore the things about him growing up with all that shame, the guilt that he carries, and the killing of his mother. I saw that bit, and the bit where he's tempted to hook up with this guy, and then they go on that bike trip and they try to kiss, and then he pushes him away, and then all of that happens. But I'm still curious to hear from Aimun about the theory that she has about the Italian guy.
Right. Yeah. What's your theory?
Okay,
About
I actually have like a larger theory about how this show is written that I was honestly just thinking of writing. Like I told my friend, and he was just like, just write a piece. Like just write a piece on this. The thing is, and he said it, he was like, if you end up in Lahore, right? And like I know you guys haven't been in Pakistan for a bit, or like like you haven't been to Hunza or whatever. When I see the Pasu cones, I know what that is. Like I know that. Like I know that place. Like everyone, like it's a very famous like cultural spot, like a tourist spot, right? Like it's on every kind of flyer of tourism flyer, whatever. And he's like, if a filmmaker comes to Lahore and like shoots around and like is heavily borrowing from like the landscape of like Badshahi Mosque and everything, and then turns around and shows Badshahi Mosque on camera and goes like, this is Agrabah, I'd just be like, no man, I no man, it's not. Like it's a place in time. Like my problem with, and like this is once again like comparative lit student coming to the fore. Like it just became that thing of like, I was just like, so this whole like the whole East kind of collapses on itself in this little village, right? Like it's just like the clothes that girl is wearing, Mehtab is wearing in the first scene, they're very Punjabi, right? Like it's a very Punjabi cut on the clothes, right? But they're presumably in Hunza. And he's going Junoob to become a big person. So Junoob means south. So like presumably to Karachi or Lahore, right? And like not in every part of the world you don't go to Junub to like make money, right? Like you're charting this on the map of like Pakistan, right? Like
Yeah.
like for example, they keep referring to like slum area as Kachi Abadi. And I'm like, no, that's a Pakistani word for like slum area. Kachi Abadi is not something like is colloquially accepted in the world other than anywhere in Pakistan, right? And then so you show Hunza, but you never show its people or like its culture or anything. And like all these people are speaking like this really Salis Urdu that feels like it was first written in English and then like you got like a person to translate it in Urdu so like people could speak it. And it's like they're speaking this Salis Urdu, and it's just like like they're referring to the main patriarch as Aka, which is like Aga Khan. Like he's married thrice, like like he's like this big philanthropist. So you're talking about Aga Khan, who's like the leader of the Ismaili community, and like majority of Hunza is Ismaili, but you don't really show them as Ismaili. And then like then they're celebrating like Mehrega, which I come out, I asked my Ismaili roommate, I said, "Do you guys celebrate Mehrega?" They're like, "No, that's a Persian thing. Like that's just Persia." So like you're doing that, and then you're not showing currency like of the country because you're really trying to do this thing of like this place is just dislocated in time
Yeah,
and
it's a
space,
magical
right?
place.
It's just
Yeah.
somewhere where I'm like I can see the Pasukon. So like maybe don't do like it's like if you're not just shooting here for logistical reasons. This is not like Lord of the Rings in New Zealand where like
Yeah.
I don't see any cultural marker. I just know they need squats and squats of land, so they're in New Zealand for this. I'm just like I can see cultural markers, but like you're making an effort to kind of remove like people from those cultural markers. The East is sort of collapsing on itself. Like anyone wears anything, says anything, celebrates anything. There's no like rigidity to the way they were. But Fawad's character is from London. London exists, like, and like in London there are like, which is why it was so interesting that like Fawad's like kind of like what haunts Fawad is that he'll become like his father, right? And like it is a mirror reflection of like it's the same image, right, of the mother and the child, and one helplessly forcing food into the mouth of the other because the father is just not at home, right? And they're left to like they're psychologically falling apart, but they're left to like take care of this vulnerable person. Like what his brother's story is also like the story of his wife. So he kind of is like his father's mirror image in that way. It's the same mother-son story where the mother ends up dead because the father isn't here. And because one of them was falling apart trying to take care of this vulnerable person. Like it's almost very well done the way this reflects each other.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, but like look at the visual language of when the older brother is dealing with the mom, where it's quite literally like they're disconnected from the world. Like it's quite literally like a set. Like the hospital scene is a set.
Yeah.
It's not a hospital. It doesn't feel like a hospital.
Doesn't look
right?
yeah.
But like Fawad's family in London, like that house is lived in. Like they have cutesy like videos about like, family videos. Like there is like prescription medicines, there are breast pumps, there's a television, there's stand-up comedy. Like this house looks like a house in which a child lives, right? And it's just like that's solid. Like that part is like a real world, right? And then when you come to the East, like you're taking care of not showing currency, like the Pakistani currency, because this can be just anywhere. This is just land of some. You're charting it on like the Pakistani landscape, right? Like even the denominations of the money you're talking about, like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I'm like, those are Pakistani rupee currency. Like no one's like economy is gone to the extent where they have 1,000 rupee note. Like it's a rupee note, right? I'm just like, it stop. And like the thing is, he keeps saying magical realism. But like if you pick up magical realism, it is so rooted in post-colonialism. Like all magical realism really dabbles with like what did colonialism do to us, right? And you're in Hunza, which has like multiple layers of colonialism on it. Like it's the Pakistani state is not exactly what it like it kind of relates to. The like you have like there was a saying like Nambardar is such a fun thing to say about the brother. Because Nambardari system quite literally got introduced in British India. Like it didn't exist. Like that's not just like a natural name for like a village leader. That's a person who like deals in land. Like like he's the British like marker responsible for like land dealings. Like who owns land, who inherits land, like what parcel of land goes to whom. And the Nambardari system is what like commercialized land in India. So you are having all these conversations about like man and his relationship with land and development, etc., etc. The other brother is named Nambardar, where I'm like, okay, so this is an interesting place to go into. Like, okay, so like, are you saying like it's the, like despite all your differences, like you're the same person, like you still like symbolize commercialization of land, etc. And I'm just like, but it feels like you don't know what a Nambardar is because you didn't like really care to figure out what this topography is,
Yeah.
right? And I'm just like, there's like so it stops being like magical realism and really sort of becomes like Aladdin, like like almost Orientalist of like like everything goes in the East. Like the only time you show local women, right, they're either being abused so they get like rescued by fairies, or they're like regretting how much they abused their daughter who got rescued by a fairy and left. Like there is no other, like local women do nothing else. Like there's no other representation for local women, right?
Right.
It's one Sherazad who's grown in royalty, and anyone in the village, like either they're regretting the way they treated their daughter or the fact that the fairies took them and they can't get them back, right? And I'm just like, and so like all of the East kind of like collapse. Like she goes to a bazaar and like in this carved wooden box with a red velvet piece, like there are shrooms. And I'm like, no one's tripping like that in Hunza. People like no one's doing right. And then she comes back and she puts the shrooms in everyone's food and like they start tripping. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, and it just in that line to have like the only character who's likable or who has like some like like who becomes like the reprieve of one of these characters haunted by their demons, for him to be European, it just kind of feels like, man, this is pointed. Like like the first episode, Fawad's character comes in and this bellboy goes like, oh, this is a place if like Switzerland and Disneyland copulated. And I'm like, that's a very weird way to describe like a place. Like that's not like no culture would accept their like and I'm like, you're not representing like like these people, you're not representing their like you're showing like these big dastarkhans being laid out with food, right? But like the only food that's by name is like Italian food. So like like you never like talk about like who these people are. Like you're criticizing their religious patriarch, but you're showing nothing about their religion otherwise. Like, who are they? What do they believe in? Like, do they even speak the kind of Urdu that you've shown them speak, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like you can pass a lot off as like, oh, this is magical realism. But it doesn't play in the tradition of magical realism because magical realism is so closely tied to the idea of post-colonialism, like in Latin America or in India or whatever. Like, what did like our experience with colonialism, like how did that like leave us dealing with power, right? And like masculinity and all these ideas. And I'm like, it stops being magical realism when you like kind of unground it from those realities and kind of just becomes like Orientalist, right? Like just anything goes. Like in the East, anything goes. Like the West has a structure to it. But in the East, like anyone celebrates any religion, any like, like because all religions are the same and everyone's saying the same message. So like everyone celebrates like any kind of like festival. They kind of speak in any language. They wear any clothes. The topography doesn't matter. You can look at a cultural marker and be like, this is land of nowhere. And you're like, no, it's not. I can see what it is.
I think that's why I think certain themes in the show feel lived in and certain things feel like a tourist visiting them.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's what we're kind of, like we spoke about the homosexual themes, the London themes, those feel lived in. Those feel like, they had personal connection with how these stories were written.
Yeah.
But all of the village part does feel like, a tourist video, or like if I would go there and I was like, that looks pretty. And that's as much as my connect will go, right? No, I get that. Was Fawad playing a therapist in this show?
Yes.
He
psychiatrist, I think.
Yeah.
Psychiatrist, therapist. So I think maybe that was also one of those things where he's failing at being able to help his wife going through postpartum depression. Right? So it's a very personal masculine failure, right? Into that. So I think again, maybe that's again a theme that's resonating in some way with the writers or the creators failing on that level, failing to connect with your parents for whatever reason, be it homosexuality, be it because of being like them, or being incorporating the hate that they have in them. So I think those themes are definitely there, and
Mhm.
those are the ones kind of that stick out. But it's when they want to become a bit more, yeah.
I really think that's what he wanted to write about. Like the two
Yeah.
brothers, I really think is what he wanted to write about. And everything else kind of just came into play because he decided he wants to do this magical realism thing. And it just looks like for example, like I really did not care about the fairy sort of situation. Like I
Yeah.
was just like, I don't, there's no nuance to this story, there is no layers to this. It's pretty straightforward that if you mistreat a woman, a fairy comes from across the mountains and takes her away. Like I'm just like, there is no nuance to this. There is no like humanization of the people who are abusing women. Like I'm just like, you can humanize them also, like bad ways, good ways. You can show me who they are beyond just like this large swaths of people who just like don't treat women well. You know?
It's also like an easy solution, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost like a cop out to a certain degree in terms of storytelling, right? Like they just take them, you don't know what happens, they all climb this mountain singing a song, you don't see them again. Like there's no why were these people with them, what they got out of it, I don't
Yeah.
never really understood. And I think that also then links with Amrit, I want to ask you first before we move on, like how did the Fawad and Iman Suleiman, I think the
Iman
actress
Suleiman.
Iman Suleiman, how did that theme kind of stick out for you? Did that work for you?
Well, first of all, I just want to give props to Aimun because, like, a lot of the things that she was talking about, um, it either didn't occur to me or like I had like no idea. Like I had no idea that the Aga Khanis were from Hunza. Like that was not like a context that I had. I did wonder why they were calling him Aka, and I thought like that was again like to me like that just sort of goes back to the like Pariyon ki kahani sort of aspect.
Arabian
And I thought
Nights.
like that was
Mm.
and also her name is Shahrazad,
Shahrazad.
And
so
his name is Sharia. Yeah.
yeah. So I thought
It's
like
referenced. Yeah.
yeah. So I thought like that was a reference, but like what you were saying makes absolute sense.
So
Um,
what's the reference? If I because I'm
Arabian
not
Nights.
okay. Which
The
So
story is it?
the framing story is like all these stories we are being told is actually being told by Sherazad to Sharia. Like
Yeah,
it's the
Okay.
framing like
hmm
thread of the Arabian Nights.
yeah. So yeah. But for me, like the Fawad and his wife, like that entire thing, like when she first showed up, I was like, is that like who, like what is happening? Like it was like one of those things where I was just like, oh no, it's a sad woman. Like, I mean,
Oh no, another character.
no, but like it's also maybe it's just that I'm like an old woman now, but it just comes to a point where I can smell the earnestness a mile away, and it's the woman with the postpartum depression, and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, like I get
But
it.
which is surprising, just to kind of undercut, because he has written Cake and he has written Churails, which
Yeah,
is really well done female representation and the themes that they speak with. And I would even say the brother relationship, when Aimun was bringing, that mirrors a bit to the sister relationship in Cake,
Yeah.
right? But I feel there's some maybe disconnect with the writing here, which I didn't feel the same way in Cake and Churails, which I thought were amazing. But it's I had that feeling too, Amrita, where you're saying that it's another sad woman, but I'm just surprised that it's coming from Asim Abbasi, where he's been deeper in his thoughts when he's writing about also sad women or broken women
Yeah.
or hurt women, right?
well, I think the fundamental problem with that particular storyline is that it really organically wants to be the story of the little boy and his father. And then storytelling wise, because it is also the story of the father and the grandfather, and because like Fawad is like a pretty magnetic person to have on screen, the storyline keeps sort of like skewing towards this dead wife theme. And pretty much all the conversations that Fawad's character has with his dad, they all come around to like wo meri aurat, tumhari pehli, meri pehli, like, you know, like it all always comes back to that. And that always takes away from the very like delicate sort of relationship between Shahryar and his son, who is really like sort of lost in the world. And in the beginning, I kind of wondered if the little boy was supposed to be the audience's POV into this world, you know, like a way for us to explore this world and find, like, make sense of like what was happening. And then it was very clear very quickly that that, you know, the little kid basically was being saved for that one last scene in the last episode. You know, like, and it was just, again, like, it, like, you know, like Aimun says, like, it was just one of those things where you just go like, what was the point of that then? So you had that entire thing about like the dead wife, and then the dead wife is just sort of like floating around, like literally just floating around. And again, like that just sort of like comes back to this recurring feeling that I have that this is such wasted potential, because there is so much that you could have done with each of these characters. Like Jafar, for instance, like you could have an entire series just about like his emotional peaks and valleys, because he genuinely is complex, right? Like he's a very unlikable person, but he also has that depth of feeling where it's like, you know, 40, 50 years later, but he's still devoted to that one girl for whom he went into the city to like buy her a necklace. Like that is the kind of thing that we still sing songs about on the subcontinent. So you have that sort of like depth of emotion that you could like talk about or like portray or explore. And instead what we have is like what sounds like a dad sort of, you know, trying to prove that he's a top dog to his sons. And it always just sort of comes down to like sexuality, which just sort of like, it's weird. It's like, it's a weird tone, right? Like the whole thing is like, oh, look at us. We are the fairies. We're in beautiful Hunza. The cinematography, it's so beautiful. And then like you have like the violence, and it's like, oh no, the violence, it's so bloody. And then all of a sudden you have like this tone where like he's just talking about like sex quite a bit. But he's not like talking about sex in like explicit terms, because again, like this is still a Pakistani serial. But he is talking about sex, like every time he's like talking to Fawad about his wife, he just seems to want to like profane it almost.
He reduces it to only sexuality when it's other women, even his other son, right? He, how many times does he call him tu galat hai, tu sahi nahi, and all that? So he reduces everybody except his own, like everybody else is reduced to sex except his own love, which is reduced, enlarged to divinity. So I think that's kind of what Jafar or Jafu is, whatever he's trying to do. But coming back to the sexuality also is that Haris, the little boy, is the one that's making the most offhanded sexual comments. Like he's making necrophilia jokes and things like that. And I was like, this whole system teda meda. Sujoy,
family pagal hai.
Yeah, exactly. Sujoy, how did, because I know you didn't kind of come to the conclusion, and I'm very sad for you that you missed out the therapy shroom session. But how did Fawad Khan as a performer stand out for you? Because for me, still, he is the best one out of the lot.
Really?
Aimun is shaking her head, so I want to hear from Sujoy, then I'll go with Sujoy.
So the reaction that I got from Twitter when the first few episodes released was, Fawad is being dickish, but he's being hot about it. You know?
Hot dick. He's being hot dick.
Yeah.
Something
And
we
I
have
got
taken
that.
on since Karan Johar. We were like, this worked. This worked. Got it.
Let's double down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely got that vibe from him. He knows he's hot, you know, even though he's throwing his attitude around, you know. What does he think of himself? You know, it's very poo in a way. And then I mean, you guys mentioned Karan Johar, that's why that came into my head.
Please direct all your letters to Sujoy Singh.
Yeah, I don't know. This series as a whole left me underwhelmed. So even Fawad being associated with it, I just couldn't. Like the last time we saw him was Mola Jet, and he was swinging gandasas and being hot about it. I prefer that version of Fawad Khan to this, where he is served very thanda material and like.
Joy, I'm just saying this is again the Farooq Sheikh Amitabh discussion we're going to be having again for the third week in a row.
Yeah.
Why we prefer Maula Jat Fawad and women prefer this other Fawad. But go ahead, please continue.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't have many notes on Fawad. Oh, I don't have any notes on anybody, but Fawad, yeah, But Sanam Saeed, I would say she's looking gorgeous on screen.
Yes. Okay. I want to hear why Aimun didn't like, because then I want to round up with Sanam Saeed's character, because I feel that's supposed to be kind of like the I don't know what it is. Aimun, you didn't like Fawad. You were shaking your head very vigorously.
I thought it was like it wasn't his best performance, but like I think that's just because I didn't like the approach he took to this. Like I thought like the older brother was like that was I enjoyed his performance a lot more of like his trauma and like his shame and everything attached to him, because like it was very understated. Like with Fawad, I think he was also doing the theater thing where I'm just like, man, there's not enough in this character for you to be doing this. Like now this just looks like you're trying to make up for everything that's like not there in the right. Like the problem with these characters also was they weren't dynamic. Like like what Amrisa said, that they're not ideas, like they're concepts, right? So like for example, like you knew the beats of every conversation very, very quickly. So like if they're sitting at a dinner table, one son will like approach his father and talk about what a terrible father he is, and the father will start screaming at him, and then like Sanam Saeed will come in and be like, oh no, please keep calm, please keep calm. That's like 2 dinner scenes. Like every conversation between like Shahryar and Shahrazad is where he's being like a rational cynic and she's being this kind of mystical believer. And then he would say something sarcastic and she would reply to it stoically, and then he would reply back sarcastically, and then she would be unfazed. And like I'm just like, I've seen this conversation take place now 4 times. Like are they learning something from this conversation, or like why am I seeing the same beats play over and over again, where I can predict everyone's behavior in this room? Because once again, you're writing concepts and you're writing about how these concepts would clash with each other. But like you're not really writing anything about like how these characters would like, like the first time he's like pointing out to the father of like, you left my mom, and like the younger Fawad is just like, he wouldn't care, let it be. And then the second time he's pointing out about how like you were so callous when my wife died, and the older Fawad is like, he won't care, let him be. And then the father is screaming at them, and like Shahrazad is just there like, please hold your calm, please hold your calm. I was just like, I've seen this exact scene like two episodes ago.
Yeah.
Like what happens to me? I just feel like because they weren't dynamic enough, when Fawad was doing so much with like his father, like, like I really hate you, etc., etc., and it kind of just resolves in an episode. I was just like, should not have hated him so much then. Like I like he should not have set me up where like he's just like reveling in the fact that his father is getting screwed over by these villagers. And then like 1 episode later, they're like buddies again. And I'm just like, so why did you hate him so much? If this is all it took.
But I think for me, the problem in a way lies with the Sanam Saeed character, because when you compound all of these problems that we have about, its themes, its ideas, its concepts, and it's never real, and I think all of that comes together in Sanam Saeed's character. And the dynamics that you're talking about, she calming down the father, calming down the villagers, calming. And I was like, to what end? Maybe have that conversation. Maybe fight it out. And I don't know why she was trying to, calm the father and calm the brothers, when like I didn't understand that at all. What was it? It wasn't even for like familial harmony, because there is no familial harmony. This is not a family in any way, shape, or form, right? And then to the point where at the end they climb this mountain. She is the dragon or the snake. Sometimes the translation changes. And then the little boy has to explain to us because the show doesn't make it clear that Mountain Baby has become queen of the village.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, at least somebody has explained to me what's going on. What she's going to do as the queen of the village, nobody knows. What she was doing as a Mountain Baby, nobody knows.
Also, like, did you ever feel this urgency of, oh my God, she has to make a choice? Will she goes with the fairies or will she stay on this land?
No.
Yeah, that was
No,
really brought up as like she's making this big call, and I'm like, I never cared. Like, I didn't think
no.
this was a big
I mean, I understand eczema can be a problem for you guys and you need a solution for it. But, like, like, I don't know.
There's this moment where like the fairies are taking her with them, and she makes this really like like call, like this character moment of like, no, I choose to stay, and I'm like,
Fine.
I didn't know this was being set up. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't think like you being here would mean anything to anyone, or you leaving is like a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because I gave up on 3.5 episodes and it all feels like a plot points on a spin on the wheel, and they just jumbled everything and just threw everything they could at the they started filming and ye bhi late hain, ye bhi late hain.
Yeah.
There should be a mountain fairy, there should be a hill, there should be that, and everything in the kitchen sink.
Honestly, the mountain didn't even look that impressive. It looked like a 30-minute hike, to be honest. Like, it was really like anybody could do this. It's fine.
Yeah.
But so I just want to tell you, like there's a moment, like Sanam Saeed starts getting like the snake skin that starts.
Yeah. She gets a tattoo and
but then it covers her neck.
Oh,
but we're not covering the face, right? Because it's Sanam Saeed face. We can't do that.
Yeah.
That's what people pay for. But it comes till the neck and then it suddenly goes away too. So that's her whole dynamic. She was going to turn into a snake and then she didn't. Apparently. Yeah. Amrita?
That's the plot of Nagin.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying that.
That's also reminds me of Hatim Tai, with Sangeeta Bajrani. She gets the curse and she turns into stone, and then you reverse the curse one step at a time and she turns back into the fairy.
Yeah.
Hatim Tai is a better watch than Barzakh, I would say.
You don't know how much I've tried not to make the Hatim Tai comparison all through the podcast. Because I was like, this is Aimun's like first time on the podcast. I don't want to like.
It's also unfair on one of the Asims. Bandha ne kitni mehnat se banaya and we compared it to Hatim Tai.
And then we just like ruined it.
Yeah. But Amrita, Sanam Saeed, how did that kind of work for you? The whole.
It genuinely it didn't. Like, that was the most thanda part of the entire exercise.
So
for me.
we started this episode with Amrita being the most positive of all.
You guys are like bringing me down. Like,
and every time we go to Amrita for comment, she really criticizes the show.
I want to end on a positive note.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amrita.
No,
the negative point.
I was just waiting for you to stop.
End mein bolunga.
No, I like the whole thing with Sanam Saeed. Like, I kept waiting for her to do something genuinely, like, because like I think I said this to you, like when I had only seen the first episode. There's a moment where like the villagers like burst into the house or whatever, and like she steps in front of Jafar and she sort of like looks like she's gonna fight them off. And I thought like she was going to be some sort of like avenging angel, like she was going to be like some sort of badass. And then it just turned out she was just this very talky woman that just like wandered around the mountain. And I was just like, oh, okay.
I did like the shawl she was wearing was like open in the front but very long and then long in the back. I thought that was kind of cool.
Styling is on point. And the face card never declines, as the youth say. But that was basically all I could really.
Also, I did not get the monologues, like the voiceover monologues that she got at the beginning. And I was like, why? Like, what is the purpose of this?
Even the text that they show of
like what
book
was the
itself.
prophecy? I didn't like. You can write any episode and then go back and write like anything in the beginning of it, and I just have to buy like the episode isn't progressing as if like how will this prophecy come true in this episode? Like, you've written an episode and you've gone back and like described it in the beginning. And I'm just like, what is, and like being like very flowery language around it. And I'm like, this doesn't mean anything. Like, you could just not have this and I could still watch the show. and
Yeah.
it would mean the same thing. Same with like the voiceovers. I was just like, these voiceovers aren't adding anything.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad for this. Like, I think that's just my general feeling. And to just kind of end it on a positive note, I do feel Asim Abbasi is like a very important creative
Yeah,
voice, right, in
yeah,
Pakistan. And I think he has the possibility to kind of step out of the confines of the Pakistani creative space
mm,
and do something different, do something challenging. And I applaud them for it. And anything he makes, I will watch, I will dissect. And if you are listening to this, Asim, I'm not being negative because I tried to get you on the show and you didn't reply to my DM. This is not the reason why we went negative, but it also is. It also is, motherfucker. But no, I think this show didn't work for me. And I
mm,
think
Yeah.
it's clear for a lot of people it didn't work. But I was also just kind of sad that the way it is available on YouTube, right? It's gotten like 6-7 million views or something like that. And I was like, man, Mr. Beast gets 50 million, 100 million views on some random bullshit. I'm locked in a tub. I'm locked in a toilet. I ran out of whatever. And that gets so, like, it's hard to be in a creative space, get people to watch your stuff and try to do something that's visually appealing that has, okay, maybe it didn't connect for us, but I'm sure that for Asim Abbasi, it had meaning, right? And it is sad that we're in a space where he's confined by, the creative space he's
yeah.
in, the stories he can tell, the medium he can bring it to, and then also just the national histories of,
India,
oh, it's an
Pakistan.
Indian platform, but you're making Pakistani do this, and oh, Pakistani shows only get promoted when there's an LGBTQ component in it, and otherwise it doesn't. All of these story narratives that
Yeah,
a creative doesn't necessarily need to be bothered with. He just needs to
yeah,
create, right?
mm,
So I just want to say that I'm really happy he made this show. We were worried that, it might not come out. We didn't hear from it for
mm,
a long time. I'm glad I watched it,
yeah,
but the show ultimately didn't work because there's so much that is just a mess. And I would not necessarily recommend it, although I did
mm.
really enjoy watching it. I didn't feel I wasted my time in any way, shape, or form. Aimun, final words on Barzakh.
I'm glad he took a swing. Like, I always like when a
Yeah.
creator takes a swing. Like, it might not pay off, it might pay off, but at least like you tried to do something that was fun. And
Hmm.
like you wouldn't really see anything like Barzakh anywhere else. On like, look, if like you wrote
Yeah.
this doesn't work for you, like go watch this. Like it's the same thing. Like it's not. It's very unique in its like its narrative voice. It's very unique in the way it has like described certain characters. I just feel like like when Asim was writing this, someone should have like stepped in and be like, "Hey, Asim, do you want to go for a walk?
Yeah.
Do you want to go for a walk? We can come back to this after." It's like, "Do you want to
Like,
go for
have a sandwich.
yeah, like
Eat
someone
something.
should have just stepped in the role and be like, "Yeah, so do you want to go for a walk?" And then I think that would have fixed a lot of the problems with the show. I
Yeah.
think he just kind of got too much into his head, and like no one stepped in and went like, "I don't think this is a narrative choice that's working." But like I'm glad he took a swing, and I'm glad you know like he did. Like you don't like I enjoy watching like good cinematography. I think like Azmi did like a really really good job with like the visual language of the show. I just wish it had more towards writing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, Joy, did this conversation convince you to watch the last few episodes that you
No.
missed?
No. Maybe I'll watch. Is the fourth episode where they have the mushroom trip? So maybe
Yes.
I'll
Yeah.
complete that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll
That's a
finish the
fun
fourth
that's a
episode.
fun thing to watch.
Can I
Okay.
also say that, like, we're talking about, there's certain themes that are clearly lived through by the
Yeah,
writers, let's
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
don't go specifically to
Yeah.
mushroom
Yeah,
trips.
yeah. Like mushroom trips fixing
It's
family
very
traumas is a
specific.
very specific choice.
It's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Just saying. So, yeah. We
Yeah.
see you. We see you.
Yeah. I should do that. I should drug my family and see what happens.
I don't speak on the behalf of the podcast, but I am very pro mushrooms, by the way. As far as Barzakh is concerned, I don't think I feel the urge to go back to watch this series. I don't feel convinced that there's enough positives for me to complete this story. life is short. There's too much content, and I'm happy that Asim Abbasi made this. He took a swing, as you guys said, and this is probably like his zero. Like Anand
Yeah,
took a swing,
yeah.
and it just feels like he lost objectivity. There's lots of ideas that sort of felt complete in his head, but when he got it out for us, it just felt like an incomplete trailer.
Yeah. That's a good. Amrita, what about you? Final words on Barzakh.
I disagree that I wouldn't recommend this to anybody. That I would recommend it to a very specific type of person. Like somebody who's like really, like either somebody who's like really young or somebody who like enjoys slower paced cinema, which is an increasing rarity in our world today because, like Sujoy said, everything is about content and there's so much of it to consume. But this is not for people who want to consume content. This is for people who want to just let the cinematic side of cinema wash over you, like this. If this had been a movie and he had released it on the big screen, it would have been a considerably different experience.
Yeah.
And I think I think Asim would still have hated it, but I think the other three on this podcast would have had a much more favorable reaction to it.
I feel I've been the most positive. Honestly, I really I really feel I've tried my best to show a positive light.
I mean, that it would have landed much better, Asim, if the sound of gritted teeth hadn't come through. But also, I just want to point out to the people who usually write in talking about how like Asim's such a hater about like village life and blah blah blah. I just want you to like notice that this is not like India specific. He hates village life everywhere, including Pakistan. So like I hope like you've got that out of your system now.
I'm an equal opportunity hater of village.
Yes. And now you have
grew up in Belgium village, by the way. I hated it there too. So I'm just
So I would actually recommend this series. If Tumblr was still the social media phenomenon that it was like 10, 15 years ago, this movie would have, this series would have just gone through it like wildfire. Like people would have obsessed over this. There would have been like so much fanfic written about this series, you won't even like believe it. Unfortunately, we live in much worse times now. So yes, but but there's still like the thing that drove Tumblr is this need to search for meaning amongst like a certain part of the population, which I think is still there. Like it's sort of like humming under the surface. And I think to those people, as they will discover this series, and because it's on YouTube, they will discover this series at some point. And when they do, I think some people will like really connect with it. And even the ones that don't connect with it, this is a very different visual style than what they're used to in like most cinema. Or like most shows that you see out of the subcontinent right now, be it Pakistan or India. And I think like that at least will grab like few people. And like maybe, I don't know, like, if you're from like, I don't know, a small town in Pakistan or even in India or some other part of the world, and you see this and maybe you learn something nice about the world, maybe, like some of that earnestness plays off. Good for them, and like Aimun said, I'm glad that he took the swing. It was a miss for me, but that doesn't mean that I didn't like it.
Good. Let's wrap it up here. Aimun, where can people find you online?
Oh, I'm on Twitter at Blue Magic Boxes. I wasn't even supposed to be on Twitter as Blue Magic Boxes. I was just like a 13-year-old mouthing off, and then it became like, so now I'm just there. So
usually is that Twitter threads
or? To like pitch it to someone. I have pitched it to someone. So I would be, if it ever comes out, I will let you guys know. If I ever write it and it ever comes out, it'll be somewhere. I will let you know.
It's going to be on Twitter, like a link.
Yeah, it'll be on Twitter. Like I will post it on my profile. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Amrita, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ.
Sujoy?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at 93K. And you can follow Khandan Podcast on all our socials at Khandan Podcast.
Drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. I'd really love to hear your thoughts about Barzakh. Maybe somebody found something that we didn't find, or, some alternative reads. I would love to read them. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll be back with a new episode very soon.
Khandan Podcast on the acting. Girl, you're my